Hello out there, and today we're going to be counting down the top 10 knives that just don't get enough pocket time. They just don't get carried enough that I own and just for some reason just am not utilizing as much as I could, as much as they deserve, let's say. And you know, I was thinking about this because I recently moved all of my knives from one room in the house to another, and there were a number of things as I was going through them all and reorganizing that I was like, geez, I really, really like this one, and I never use it anymore. And it's almost like, what's the point in having it? And I guess it's part of having a collection, but it's also, I don't know, it's a little bit disappointing, and it makes me want to like actually sell a few knives. I've talked in the past how I want to do a knife sale, and I just always put it off because it's hard for me to let go. But you know, when you're not utilizing these things, it just makes no sense to have them around. And there's some really good knives, some knives that I really like a lot and don't want to get rid of that I just never carry. And so I want to go through all those today and sort of explain, you know, maybe why that happens. I'm not even sure if I know. But I mean, the big thing though, I mean, the big reason is that a lot of times, like most days, I'm carrying a knife that I'm going to end up reviewing, you know, like these two up here. You know, that's probably half the week right there. And then the other days of the week, I'm just sort of grabbing whatever's around. And more often than not, it's something like the 943 or a mini Griptilian. And, you know, can't really go wrong with those. Not really lacking for anything when it comes to these two knives. So, you know, I'm not missing out. But I just do have a whole lot of other things that, you know, once I get them in, even though I enjoy them, I move on and move to something else and just don't really come back to them as often as I should. So today we're just going to go through them, not really count down 10 to 1 because I don't really know how to order this stuff. It's just 10 things that I really noticed I like a lot and just don't carry often enough. Let's get started. Number 1. Here is the Benchmade Bugout. Believe it or not, great knife, right? With all of the aftermarket kind of stuff that you want with the Rogue Bladeworks scales and the Blades We Love hardware. This is the first production, and I really can't complain about this knife at all. I love it. The only thing is I don't carry it. And the big reason with this one is that honestly, even though it is very different, let's say, than a mini Griptilian, I think that they're similar enough that when it comes to me just wanting to grab one and go for the day, I can just go with a mini grip, and it sort of falls into the same category, I guess, as that mini grip. And so with all the different variations of those that I have, it's easier for me to just grab one of those and you know, keep all of those knives active than it is the Bugout. And not really an excuse. I don't even know if that's a good reason, but it just seems to be the case of what happens. So this one, I mean, very rarely is getting carried, like once every couple months maybe, you know. So go figure. Great knife though. I have a lot of conversations with people about how much I like the knife, just I don't carry it. Next is the ZT0770CF, and this was a gift from my wife, and this has so many great features to it, guys, and you might recognize the lines of the Natrix series. This is one of the precursors to that series. There's another ZT that actually is even older than this, but I just love the blade shape. I love the blade shape. I love the ergos. It's a fantastic knife. It's the only knife that I have that has LMAX steel. So for what that's worth, pretty cool. I don't really know. I don't really have a good reason why this knife doesn't get carried. I know there's some ZT fans who don't really care for this one because it's an assisted opening knife, and people don't like their ZTs to be on speed safe, but that never really bothered me. So I don't know. It's just one that I enjoyed a lot when I first got it, and it's sort of been put on the back shelf and never made its way back to the front. We're going to go to Kershaw next, and the Kershaw that we're going to be talking about is a wonderful one, and this is the Kershaw Method. This is one of the best sub $25 knives I think that you're going to find. This is a Jens Anzo design from a few years ago, and this one was never really as popular, I think, as it should have, because there were a few other knives that came out the same year that were sort of overshadowing it in that like $20 to $30 range. But this one is just really nice and snappy, great action. It's a wonderful example of what you can get for sub $30 from Kershaw, and it's sort of one of those knives that I use to like sort of set the bar when it comes to what I expect from Kershaw at that price point, because I know they can do it. Locks up well, really wonderful action. This is on KVT ball bearings. So, you know, and it was from that year. And again, I can't remember the names of the other models, but it's from the year where they were just, oh, the Fraction was one of them. They were releasing a bunch of good budget models on KVT bearings. This one just sort of got left in the dust, but it was my favorite out of all of them. And yeah, I mean, maybe it's because it's just super cheap and the materials aren't as good, but I don't think so. It's just, yeah, it's just out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. Super duper light, beautiful knife. And I always liked it because it sort of reminded me of some Browse designs as well. So we have that one. All right, what else do we have? Let's stay relatively inexpensive and go to a CRKT. And I think in a video once I called this my favorite CRKT of all time, and it really might not be far off from that. This is the Hootenanny, and just a wonderful Ken Onion design. CRKT did a great job with this, a stainless steel frame lock, and then, you know, you see the bolster, and then we have these other scales as well. It's like a GFN, like some kind of plastic scale, but it just has a great classy look and a strong build just for that, with that stainless steel frame. Really nice, almost Persian-y kind of upsweep to the blade, jimping where you can choke up on it. It's a cool one, super cool knife. Just doesn't get carried. And I know CRKT really appreciated this design. They did try to do a couple other things, like some sprint runs with this, and I hope that they would come back to it again and do some more, and they never did. And this knife has just sort of fallen off the radar, I think, for a lot of people, and myself included, because, you know, I just continue to get new CRKTs, and I never really come back to putting this one in the pocket and remembering how much I enjoy it. All right. What else do we have? All right, this is going to be a silly one too. I mean, I'm talking about like the most popular knives on the planet. I talked about the Bugout. Here's the Paramilitary 2. And it's stupid. It's stupid that this is even there, but it just doesn't get carried that often. I have this in more videos than any other knife because it's constantly on this table. It never leaves this table. It's here for size comparisons. And occasionally I'll reach down and grab it and put it in my pocket and carry it. But I don't know. It's just one of those things where we see this knife constantly because of all the sprint runs and all the stuff that is always being innovated with it. I think there's like the Tanto version's finally coming out, and there's like a Wave version coming out. So Spyderco just always is keeping this in the forefront of their like production lines. But for some reason, I just sometimes forget how good it is. And then I'll carry it a couple days and actually have to use it extensively on one of those days and realize how much I appreciate it, but then it just goes back onto the table and ends up being in videos for size comparisons for like a month or two before I put it back in the pocket again. So strange that like some of the most popular and best-selling knives out there are on this list, but hey man, that's just the way that it goes. What else do we have to talk about? All right, let's talk about this guy. Some of you are going to be familiar with this, and you might be familiar with it just because I've tried to shove this knife down people's throats every chance that I get. This is the Keiser Cord, and it might be very hard to find at this point just because it's discontinued, but to this day, it is still my favorite Keiser that I've ever handled. It's just a beautiful knife, beautiful lines, and it's super light titanium frame lock with this G10 insert, green and black. So just ultra classy looking, but still just a knife that is very good to carry and actually have to use. Action on it is pretty darn good. Thumb studs instead of a flipper. So it's got these qualities and characteristics that just really jump out at me and make me so excited to have it that I keep it in a damn box and never use it. Oh man. It's one of those things, I guess, you know, and maybe I just need to focus more on pulling knives like this out, or maybe I just need to downsize, you know. If I have something that I like this much and have this much appreciation for, but I can't find the time to carry it, then, you know, what the hell's the point? So, you know, I sort of think that I should find some homes for these knives instead of just not carrying them, but I don't know, that's a debate that I have inside my head, and who knows where it will actually go. But regardless, this is a fantastic, fantastic knife. And again, I mean, I try to keep up with Keisers and get my hands on as many of them as I can, even if I'm not buying them, which usually I'm not. But, you know, if I have the chance to check them out, I do. And I still, to this day, have not found one that I like more than this. So I think 3 more. I think I've done 7. Maybe I've done 6. 4 more. All right. So we'll do another CRKT, another Hootenanny CRKT. And this one is called the Swindle. And the Swindle is one of the first knives that I remember seeing in a knife video online. And just like the first shot of it, I said, I'm buying that knife. And it was a Cutlery Lover video way back in the day. And I just knew that this was the knife for me. And my wife is actually the one who got this one for me as well. And it's just super cool. It's unique. It's classy. It's got a look to it that no other knives really have. It's one that it just really doesn't make any sense that it doesn't get more more attention and more pocket time even now, because even now there aren't that many knives like it. And you think about the knife that is like really hyped and coming soon from Spyderco, the Swayback. I mean, this has the same general kind of design and lines. It's that same similar kind of thing. And I don't know, it just seems like something that a lot of people would be interested in, and it was a lot of fun to carry when I was carrying it, because, you know, this clip is actually a lot more functional than it looks. But yeah, it just was used and then just sort of stopped being used. But it shouldn't have been. And I think, you know, if nothing else comes out of this video, hopefully a couple of these knives will get put back into rotation a little bit more. And I think more than almost any of them, this one will get pushed into that rotation, because yeah, it's just not much else like it. And Ken Onion continually like reinventing himself and doing new things, and this was one of the big hits, I think, of his career, at least with CRKT. All right, last 3. Spyderco Domino. I know, it's hypocritical. This is a hypocritical video. I do these reviews for knives and talk about how great they are, and then I never carry them again, right? The Domino is my one knife for everything. And I'm not even going to go back on that at this point. I'm still going to say it. If I had to get rid of all my knives and could only have one, probably would be the Domino. It just fits every facet of things that I need. Every characteristic, you know, it has really just works for everything. If I had to use one knife for every single job that I could ever come across, it would still be this one. But realistically, I don't need to do that, right? I have a bunch of other knives, so I'm never really going to be in that situation. I can pick and choose. And so, you know, as fun as it is to make those kinds of like declarations, this is my one knife for everything, like we're not in that situation. And this knife, for whatever reason, I mean, people love it. It's one of those things that if I carry this knife, I take a picture of it and post it, people love seeing this knife. It's just one of those classic Spydercos that should never have been discontinued. And for whatever reason, I'm just not keeping it active in my carry. So that's a shame. That by itself is a shame. It's a beautiful one. And yeah, it's got a nice edge on it too. Sort of catching the light really well. So XHP on this one, it's held up really well. Some people have not been a fan of the action, number of different things, the QC on it, but mine has been fantastic the entire time I've had it. All right, last 2 knives, guys. I've got the Kershawestriol, and this is another one we've talked about on the channel. One of the things I like about knives is I like a knife that is unique. Right? It jumps out at me. If I can find a unique knife that will sort of set me apart a little bit, in addition to being able to be functional and fulfill EDC tasks, I really like that. There's some knives that are great and fantastic, and I just end up thinking that they're boring because I have a bunch of knives and I don't need a knife that looks like all my other knives. There's not a knife that I have that looks anything remotely like this. So you would think that this would be used all the time. You know, and I went out of my way. I had 2 of these a few years ago, and I modded one and sold it, and then I ended up selling the other one as well. And I went out of my way and hunted another one down because it was so stupid of me to sell those. And I did all that in order to not really carry it that much. But this one is a speed-safe assisted opening knife. Some people have de-assisted this one. A couple of my buddies on Instagram have, and they enjoy it that way. I have tried doing that. I do not enjoy it that way. I like the speed-safe, and with the thumb studs, these weird thumb studs as they are, it works well. This is Jade G10 before the Jade was a trendy kind of thing. So yeah, and it's just a beautiful grind. I love like the slicer kind of grind on it. It's a great knife. Man, I'm an idiot. I need to carry this one more, because this one is not one that I'm going to be selling, that's for sure. And then the last one, and this is the knife more than any that made me decide to do this video. The ZT0393. I freaking love this knife. It's my favorite ZT, hands down, probably that I've ever handled. The 561 or 562? 562, I think, that I got at Blade Show in 2019. I had been looking forward to getting that knife for so long. I finally picked one up at Blade Show, and I ended up moving on from it. Why? Because I like this knife more. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people disagree with me, but I just freaking love this knife. And it's so stupid that it doesn't get as much pocket time as it should. Because, yeah, it's just an awesome blade. And I've seen a lot of people with their modifications on them, and they have sprint runs, and people will, like, polish this stuff down and re-anodize or do new scales, this and that. This knife doesn't need any of that. It is so good as it is. It is just a great Hinderer design done by ZT. And I think with all of the other hits from Hinderer done by ZT, this one sort of gets lost in the shuffle, and it shouldn't. And I know there's a lot of people who I respect who just don't see this knife that way, but I mean, I'm not usually a fan of these like harpoon blades. I love this. I'm usually not a fan of grinds like this. I love this. It's just something about this knife that calls to me, and calls to me to the extent that I need to just keep it in a drawer and not carry it enough. So hopefully this video, if it accomplishes nothing else, it will encourage me to sort of force some of this stuff either back into my rotation or find homes for it with people who will use it. That would be fantastic. But what I want to hear from you guys is, what are yours? You know, do you have great knives that you just don't carry? Is it for a reason, or is it just because you're busy and you don't have enough time to carry all the knives you want to carry? What's the reasoning behind it? Are you just a collector and they're save queens, or do you like looking at them but don't want to use specific ones? Whatever it is, you know, I'd really like to hear your take on this, guys, and if you encounter the same kind of things that I do when it comes to this, all right? And any other questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. Really appreciate it. I will talk with you soon. Take care and have a good one.